Today's video is the first video in a series of videos where we are going to create all of the chart types in Excel. For today's video, we're going to be working on the clustered column charts. So what I'm going to do is go through each type of them. So this is the clustered column chart. We're going to work on different designs. This is still the same type of chart, we're just going to plot it different ways where we're going to put different values in different places and then format it differently. All of these are clustered column charts. This one is a stacked column chart, and this is another design of the stacked column chart like that. Then this is the 100% stacked column chart. Once again, another 100% stacked column chart. This is the 3D clustered column chart, another 3D clustered column chart. Same thing, another 3D clustered column chart. This is a 3D clustered column chart, so on and so forth, 100%, 3D, and then we have the 3D charts. So we're going to just create it, and I'm going to show you different ways you are going to create these different types where they sort of look different in, the charts themselves. And then we're also going to do a bit of formatting where I'll show you how you can format all of these items, where you see some of them having unique designs and things like this. All right. Enough talking, let's get started with this tutorial. So I already have my dataset open. It's currently in the Excel workbook format. So when you download it from either an attached file or from the GitHub repository, it's going to come as a CSV format. Save a copy as an Excel package workbook format. That's what I have here. So what I'm going to do first is create a table. I'm currently I'm currently on cell A1, Control Shift, right click, and then select the down arrow, and you can go ahead and insert table, and we're going to highlight and click on OK. Sometimes you don't even need to do that. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go to insert table, and you see it's already highlighting every piece of data we have here. Let me just demonstrate. So sometimes you don't even need to select and then click on OK, and you'll see that it has made a table with the entire data set. Okay, so now let's move on to create our first chart. Let's create a new sheet, and I'm going to select any cell. I'm going to insert a pivot table, so I'll select this. Now there are two ways we can do this. We can either reference the actual data we want to use to create the pivot table, or we can just reference the table. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to select from this cell. No, I'm not on the right one. It's supposed to be A1. I'll select A1, Control Shift left, and then down, and you see here it's showing here as table 2. It could, if this is your first table you created in your, I created one, undo, and then created another one. That's why it's table 2. You can rename this. So I'm just going to click enter. So if I come back to the data set here and we go over to table design, you'll see the name of the table. So from this point forward, I'll always reference table 2. Yours probably will be table 1. If that's, or whatever table it's referencing, all you need to do is reference that table. You don't need to go back and select the range of your data. Just reference the table by name. So from this point forward, I'm just going to reference table 2 anytime I want to create a pivot table. We are going to start with a very simple design. When we're working with clustered column, which is what we're a clustered column chart, it's going to have different designs and things like that. So we're just going to start with a very basic one, and then we'll just move on and then create more complicated or items charts with more items. So let's start with if I can find category. So I'm going to put category in rows, and then the value we're going to use is going to be revenue. So I'm going to grab revenue, and I'm going to add revenue to values. So I can change. I held Control Shift down, and that will allow me to select everything like this. And under this tab here in the home tab, I can change this to currency, and I'm going to change it to dollars. I'll leave the decimal places as 2 decimal places. You can reduce it, but for now let's leave it like that. You can remove this grand total if you want. Right click, and then you can see remove grand total. So let me just do that. We're We don't really need the total, so we're just going to remove that. Now let's insert our chart. We'll go over to insert. Let's go to, you can either create it here, but I'm just going to use recommended charts, and then we can see this first option, which is the clustered column chart. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and this is what a clustered column chart looks like. Now you see that the bars are showing different lengths, so the length is the value. I'm going to come over here, right click, and I'm going to sort, and we are going to sort from largest to smallest, and now the orders of these bars are going to change. This is what it looks like by default, but let's do some formatting. I know that charts are data analysis tools, but we're going to focus more on the charts themselves and how you can format it to show different values, or to maybe even make them look differently, you know. So when you're designing dashboards and things like that, sometimes how you design your dashboard or whatever you're looking at, it may change. So let's now do some formatting to this chart. I'm going to select either of these buttons, right click, and we're going to hide all fill buttons on chart, and we're going to remove that. This is a legend. We don't need a legend, we just have only one item, so there's no need for us to have a legend. I'm going to select it. You can also come here to this chart element and you can tick off the legend, or I'm going to undo that. You can select the element and just delete it. I'm going to come over here. This is revenue by product category, so I'm going to change the title to revenue by product category, like that. We can, just like we did with the legend, we can either format the chart area to remove these grid lines, or we can just delete it. Let's now change some other details. I can also select this again. I'm going to delete that. Come over to the chart element and we are going to add data labels. Now we have the values on top of the bars themselves. You can change the position, but we're going to do a lot of, you know, as we're creating different clustered column charts, we're going to do multiples of the same type of charts, the same number of values or number of fields, and then we're just going to continuously modify. We won't be able to do everything, but I'm just going to give you like a walk around how you can just take a walkthrough of how you can format your charts and things like that. Let's now right click on this so we can now format. Select this option, format chart area, and now I'll select these bars. Let's change the fill. So I can go over to fill, and it's currently set to automatic. If I select this color and change it to something else like this one, it's going to change to solid fill. So if you want to change it, you can, depending on what theme you're using. Excel or whatever you set it to, Excel always pick a certain color. So that was the color for the by default for me, and all I just did is change it to solid fill. So this is for the bars. You can use gradients, you can use a picture or texture, you can use pattern, or you could use automatic, which is based on the theme. You can select no fill, and I'm going to click on this. Now we can't say anything. I don't know why you do that or what you need it for, but you know, depending on what you need, maybe it's necessary. Maybe you just have the outline. We're going to have something like that in the future. Like I said, we'll just kind of walk through it. Let's use solid fill, and I want this dark blue color. Let's look at the border. Similar to what we have, we can select, by default you're going to have this like light color as the border, but which is the automatic. We can select no line, so you have no lines on your charts. You can select solid line, where you have this color. You could use gradients, and I'm going to show you once again this topic, and you can just modify, but for now let's use a solid line as our outline, and I'm going to use the same blue color we have on the columns. Next, if you want to add some effects to the chart itself, say like shadows and all of that, but like I said, if we were to add all the effects on all of them, we're going to stay here a long time. So as we're going through the other ones, we'll just be randomly picking things to add and remove. So from this point forward, I'll just apply some settings. So I'm going to come over to size. You can change this is the dimensions of the chart, rotation, all that kind of thing. Rotation is on here, scale and all that. We're not going to touch that. But what we'll do is oh, not that, I'm supposed to select the bars themselves, so these columns themselves. So you see this gap width, that's what I was coming for. So we selected this, the fill. You can actually add a border for these bars if you want. Let me say I select solid line, and by default, let me see, what color did it use? So it used the same color I used. So if I pick a different color like this, now you see that it's not really, let me pick a different color for the border. Let me see what would contrast very well. So we have something like this. Well, I'm just going to undo it, we'll do more later. So just select the bars, and I'm going to change the gap width. Normally I stick between 80 and 100%, but depending on what you're working on, you may change that. So we have this. Next, let's select this area, this section here. So now we have an option to format the axis. We can delete this too, but it really doesn't make sense. I've deleted that, but I'm going to add it back. Let's say you want to remove that as part of your charts design. So over in data labels, I can select this, and we can select more options, and we can choose what we have displaying in our labels. So I'm going to come over here, and under label options we can add, is it series name? No, category name. So now if I delete this one at the bottom, it will actually make more sense. It will now make sense, where you now have electronics, this is the value, this is the value, that is the value. So I just wanted to show you that that is also an option, but I don't want to do that for this chart. We'll visit that in other parts. I'll just go back to label options, and I'm going to deselect category name. So I'm going to, let's go back to this one. I want to remove this line on top here. So I'll go over to fill, and here we have this automatic. We're not going to use automatic. I'm going to select no line, and now when I click out, you won't see that line anymore. I'm going to select this area here. So what we're selecting is not this. If you select this, you're selecting the entire chart. If you select here, you're now selecting the plot area. I'm going to, once again, you can add a fill. So if I select solid fill, we're going to have a color there. Maybe you want to have it, and once again, gradient or picture or texture, pattern, or whatever you choose. This actually looks very interesting, visually interesting, but very distracting. So I'm going to undo it, but what we want is no fill, or what was it? Was it automatic? Yeah, it was automatic. I'm going to leave it like that. And then for border, let's use a solid line, and let's pick a different type of line. So you have different types of line options. So you can increase the width of the transparency of the line. Currently it's at 0%. So what's going to happen is that you can see it pretty clearly, 100% no transparency. So if I add 50, so now the opacity has reduced and we can see less of that line. I'm going to return it back to 0 so that it's full color. You can increase the width of the line. I'm just going to increase it, and you can see that it's increasing as I do that. I'm just going to click escape. So what I'm going to do is just select one of these. We can use compound lines, this. So if you, let me increase. Now you can see that, we have a different type of line. So this is how you can just constantly, there are some options that are not available in some charts, and they are like, I think column charts, line charts, pie charts, they are some of the most well, I say formatable. You can format pretty much anything about them, but there are some charts that you don't have as much options to format them. So for now, I'm just kind of showing you around. When you get to certain, especially when you start getting to certain charts, you figure out what you can edit. Like scatter chart is one of the most difficult to change. You can only change color dots. You can't really do much with it. Anyway, so I'm going to return the line back to a single line, and this is by default is 0.75, and I'm going to change the dash type to this one. We're just using it for demonstration purposes. So if I zoom in, we want to look at, I'm holding Control and then scrolling up. I'm going to select this chart area once more, and if I come over to the cap type, we can select round, and I don't know if you could notice that. Let me try and get as close as possible. If I select flat, you see it will change. We have square. I'm going to use round. So join type we can also change, but it really doesn't affect it that much. But what we'll focus on is cap type. I'll just change the cap type to round, and essentially that is what it is. I just wanted to kind of show you around like a basic clustered column chart with just one what do we even, let me look at the values, one category, one item which is in the rows, and then one value which is the revenue in the values. All right, that's enough for this one. Let's now move on to the next one. Oh, before I do that, let me just rename the sheet revenue by category. All right, now we can create a new sheet so we can create another column chart. I'm going to start by inserting a pivot table. You can create all your charts on one sheet if you want to, but I typically like to create all my charts on different sheets. So I'm going to insert pivot table, and for me it's table 2. Whatever is the name of your table, you can reference it, but mine is table 2. I'm going to use 2 values this time. So we are going to use categories and region. So we'll have categories in rows, region in columns, and then we'll have our value, which is also going to be revenue. So let me find the first one. I'm going to start with drag category to rows, and we are going to drag region to columns, and value is going to be revenue. And I'm just going to grab that and add that to value. And yeah, this is what we have. I'm not really going to worry about sorting it because we're looking at multiple values, so whatever we sort it by really doesn't matter. I'm going to, maybe we could sort it by grand total, but once again I'm just going to leave it as it is. We have 2 grand totals here because we're looking at 2 values. So you can add a value in filters, but I typically don't use value. Let me say I add category, and now you can filter it, but normally what I do is use slicers. So let me create, let's insert our chart, and then I'll show you how to use slicers to filter. Well, that's what I typically do. I'm going to select all of these values, go over to the home tab, and I'm going to change it to currency, and it's also 2 decimal places. You can leave it like this. Let me remove one of these grand totals. Let's remove that one at the bottom. All right, let's select any value on this pivot table. Go over to insert recommended charts. Once again, we're going to use a clustered column chart. Now, as you notice, we're using exactly the same chart we created before, but just because we have a different number of categories that we're looking at, it's now adding those values. So we're looking at 2 discrete items, which is it's separating. Let me just go ahead and click on OK. Now, this accessories is split by category. So we have this electronics, accessories, and furniture. This time it's now split by region, so we can see the value for each region. So here we have this is south, so you can see that in the south, as accessories does, let me see the walls here. These two are almost, let me see, 498, and this one is 506, so almost the same thing. Then you can also look at northeast and south and west and midwest. So that is how this will work. Let me just show you slicers before we move into formatting this chart. I'm going to go over to insert, and we are going to have this option slicers. Timeline is more like when you want to look at a range of items using your date. So if you have dates and you want to look at a specific time period, that is when you use timeline. But slicers, if I click on this slicer, we can now decide what slicer we want to use. So let me see. Maybe if I want to look at it by quarter, and you can insert multiple slicers once. So I could use, okay, let me see payment method. Those looks good, and that looks good. So we have 2 slicers, and now if I select card, we can now see the performance of by region, by product category, but we're looking at a specific payment method. We can change it to digital wallet, cash, and then we have transfer. So for transfer, you can see that was the South does the best by region in the furniture category. I'm going to just clear this, and I'll just delete this because we don't need it. I just wanted to use it for demonstration. Then let's do it by quarter as well. If I set calculate Q1, you'll see what we have, Q2, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. So I typically don't use filters in the charts directly. I tend to just use slicers. If you want to use filters, that's fine, but it depends on what you want to do. Let's now format this chart. Once again, I'm going to right click and hide all fill buttons on charts. Let's add the chart title. So I'm going to select on this chart element and I'm going to select chart title. Let's now modify the title. This is revenue by region. You can say revenue by region and category, but I'll just leave it as revenue by region. And I'm going to click out. We can also modify this text. Now if you select, let me see, I can go over to this option. If you don't have that, you can, let's see, it's giving me issues. Okay, you can use text options and then change the color of the text in your chart, or you can go over here in the home tab. I like to use it here because it feels more intuitive. Like I know what I'm doing and I don't tend to make a lot of modifications to my text. It's just to change the color, opacity, or the font type, or the font rather. So the fonts, the size, and I'm currently selecting the entire chart. But if I wanted to change the details for different font details, all I need to do is select it. Let me say I want to change the color of the text for the entire chart. I'm going to select black, and now we have full black. Let me say I want to change the, I'll select just this one. I can change the, let me see, I change the fonts to this. So now we have different fonts for this side, and for the legend I can also change the text. Let me see, I pick one random. Let me pick something much different. Let me use something like this. I don't think there'll ever be a time you're going to use an actual text like this. When you're dealing with charts, I always go for, if you're trying to decide what chart you're using, depending on the number of items or what you want to look at, always go for legibility. How, you know, when you create a dashboard or when you create a chart like this, it's almost like you're presenting the data in a picture format. I don't think someone has to look too closely to figure out what a picture is telling. So you essentially just go with that idea that at a glance, someone should tell what is going on. They don't need to look too closely. So I won't recommend using, I rarely ever change the font. I do sometimes, but typically I just stick to the default because, you know, it's just here to demonstrate. So I'm going to just remove that. And this also applies to color. I can change the text color to this for just the legend. So if you want to have different colors for the legend, and this also applies to the individual items. So let me say I go back to home. I'm going to pick a different color for just that one, and now I've changed the color of the text to just the individual item, which is Midwest. So once again, I'll just go through it. I'll touch on some things, and to other things I'll just say with time and practice you kind of figure out your way around it. So let's now format this chart. I know that I started with the text, but yes, let's now format the chart area still. All right, go over to chart options. Let's start with the fill of these bars. So I'm going to select this one first. That's Midwest. It's currently set to automatic. All you need to do is change the color. So let me say I'll change it to this color. This one I'll change to this purple color. This one I'll change to, let me use this other color, and this blue, let's use a darker shade. I'm going to use this one. So that's how you can just like the way we did with the previous one, you can also change the color. Under border, for border, let's give this one, so we have, let's use solid line as our border, or could you leave it at automatic? What you're going to do is scroll down and you see this option for rounded corners. If you select no line, or let me see, let me scroll down, even when you select gradient line, you're still going to have the option for rounded corners, automatic rounded corners. If you select no line, you can't, there has to be a line for it. So if you, let me say I select solid line and I select rounded corners. What if you don't want it to have this color? But if you select no line, the option to add rounded corners is not going to be there. So what you do is select solid line and just change the color of that line to the color of your chart, and it will look like it doesn't have. So if you wanted to make it legible for people to see what is behind, or what kind of line it has, all you need to do is just add maybe a shadow. So I'm going to use this color. So now you can see the border of the line. It's really faint, but that's what I think it will select by default. So that's what I just used. Let's select this line. Let's change the line type. Let's use dash lines. I'm going to select this dash type. I'm going to use this one. Maybe the dashes feel too close. All this is for editing, formatting purposes and things like that. So I'll use a different, we can make this line thicker if we want, maybe with 1 point. You can let's change the, you can't really tell because it's quite far, but I'll just change the round, the corners to round, the cap type to round. Let's select any of this chart. Let's go over to, we didn't apply any effects or shadow or other kind of things. Let's just move on to something else. This secondary axis, when we're working on other charts, when we're working with pie charts and combo charts, we're going to see where this secondary axis comes in. I'm going to, let me make this, I'm just going to keep reducing it. Increase it by, currently negative. I want to make it -10, and now you see the series. If you make it just 0, you'll see that they'll be very close to each other. I don't want it. I just want to use 10. We're just going to leave this gap width as it is. So if I use 80 this time, it's going to feel too close, where we're looking at two different categories, 4 different 3 different sections in 4 different categories, sort of. You don't want to make it too close where at a glance a person can't tell. So it's better to leave it at the default, where at a glance you can see the different categories of what you're looking at. And I could even let's say we have legend here, so we have the region here. We can let me say for this one we can add axis title. So now let me say we don't need this. This one is obviously the revenue. So you know what, let's even do that. I'm going to add revenue, although our chart already says revenue. Just in case, we'll say this is revenue, and then we'll say this is category. Once again, it's not really necessary. We already have revenue here. Since the chart is saying if it was profits, then we know that these values are profits. Since we already reference region here, we will now put like category. You don't need to do that, but I'm just showing it to you so that whenever you want to format a chart or something like that, you can know, what to add, what to not add. Sometimes all of these things are not necessary. But anyway, that is it for this one. Let's create another clustered column chart and then format it again. I'll just rename the sheet. Let's say this revenue by region. Oops, revenue by region. All right, this time I'll just go ahead and I'll just format it as I go, and with time you'll kind of pick up on the things I'm doing. Let's start with a pivot table. So I'm going to go to insert pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 2, and we are going to use month this time. Typically when you're working with dates or a continuous series like dates, you use a line chart, but we want to demonstrate a column bar chart, so we're going clustered column chart, so we're going to use it here. Next up, let's use revenue. Again, I'm going to use revenue. This time we're not going to sort it because it's already ordering it by month, and we're going to leave it like that. I'm going to select all of this, go over to the home tab, and I'm going to change the format to dollars. I reduce the decimal places to 0. So if you want to increase it, you can do this, but I want to have no decimal places because I want to use, is it a data table in our chart? So I'm going to need as much space as I need. So I just want them to be much shorter for what I want to demonstrate. Next, I'm going to go over to insert recommended charts, and we are going to insert a clustered column chart once again. So I'm just going to go ahead, right click, and I'm going to remove field buttons on charts. If you select remove field, what you're doing is removing the entire thing. You're actually removing the data itself, not just the buttons. So hide all field buttons on charts. All right, now I'm going to, let me change the title. This is, let's say sales by month. We can also say monthly sales, anyone will do. And I'll just select this axis, delete, select this line, delete, select the legend and delete. Let's come over here, and here we're going to want to use a data table. So now we'll have the values at the bottom. When we created the first one, we just had it at the top. So we're not going to have everything. I'm just going to, let me zoom out, and I'm going to increase the width so that we can see the values for this entire thing here. I'm just going to, all right, I want to format this. So I'm going to right click, format data table. So anytime you want to format any item, you just right click. I'm going to show legend keys. We don't need that. So I'm just going to remove that. Next, I'm going to select, this time I want us to create a gradient. So our bars, the bars are going to have a gradient fill. So let's start with the bars. I'm going to go over to fill, come to fill, select gradient fill, and we can just leave it like that. If you want to see what color, what that it's using, I'm going to select this one. So if you want to add more positions, all you need to do is click and it's going to add more. So you can change the color, let me see, something like this, and it will add it to the gradient. Then let me say you want to add one more here. All you need to do is click, and if you want to change it manually, this is the position. Then you can change the transparency and brightness of it, but I don't want to make it too complicated. So what I want to do is click out. I want to undo that. We just want one color. Next, I'm going to come over to our series options, and I'm going to make the gap width 80%. And yeah, we have this. This time let's remove the outline of our chart and add a shadow. I'm going to come over to this. Sometimes I have issues. I have to click out, come back. All right, under the fill, I'm just going to go to border, and we are going to select no line, and I'm going to select one of the presets, and this is the one I like to use, offset bottom right. So that's it. If you want to modify the shadow, you can, but that's enough for what we want. And anyway, that is the sales by month or monthly sales charts. This one we use the gradient design, and we also use data tables in our chart. Let's create the next chart. I'm going to create a new sheet, and I'm going to select any cell, go over to insert pivot table, and I'm going to use table 2. And what I'm going to need for this one is going to be category. So we want to see number of units sold, category, and we'll go to units sold in values. I'm going to, I'll just leave the grand total. No reason to remove that. I'll go over to insert recommended charts, and I'm going to use a column chart, clustered column chart. I'll hide all field buttons on charts, and I'm going to change this title to units sold by category. Before I move on to do any formatting on this chart, I'm just going to show you some of the presets in Excel, so you can use one of the ones provided. You can either come over here, and then in chart styles you can select different versions. So we have this one. Yes, you can build this yourself, but there are some options you can choose from, and depending on what you're plotting, there will be different options. Some of them don't even have any I think is it scatter charts? I can't remember, but some of them don't actually have ones you can choose from. So we have this. You can choose from either of these options. The one I want to do now, well, actually it's going to be very similar to this. What our final charts will look like for this page is going to look like. We have all of these options. There's this one probably is just to reduce the opacity or increase the opacity of transparency. This one, add a shadow to the charts. That's how you can do it. Maybe as a practice, you can try recreating the presets if you want to also check it. This is the same thing. So all the other items we looked at. So with all whether it's Excel or PowerPoint, there's often multiple ways to do something. So I can either do it here, or select here, or come over to the home tab. Then we have here change colors, and this is what I meant by depending on the theme, the color will change. So since we are using like this one, I has the first color in the palette as orange. When we do a stacked column chart, this will actually make more sense, but for now it's just going to change we have only one colors in our bars on the chart, so it's not really going to change much. So when we're working on the stacked column chart in this same video, then we are going to see that. But anyway, let's create another version of it's all the same charts, they all work the same way. We're just changing the design so you can see different versions of how you can modify it. So what I'm going to do, once again, select and delete. Select the grid lines. I'm going to delete it, and no need for the total. I'm going to come over here, select the entire chart area, or okay, we don't need to select. Let me see, I don't want to make any changes. We already used shadows. You can add a glue to the chart, so you can come over to shadows, and you also have glue. So if you want to use one of the glue, it's just adding like a back color to the back of your chart. But yeah, let's just leave it like that. So I'm going to select these bars, and I'm going to come over to the fill. Under fill, I'm going to select no fill, and then under border, I'm going to use a solid line. I'm going to use, okay, it's already selecting the color. This is the color I want to use, that dark blue, and I'm going to make the width 2.5. Come over to the series options, and I'm going to make the gap width 80%. Next up is this section, so I'm just going to select it, and under fill, I'm going to go to line, and we're going to select no line. Next, let's add a data labels, and under the let me click on it, data labels, select more options, and we're going to select center. So this is another design you can try. So it was similar to that one we had, but I think it was on top, not in the center. So yes, you can recreate the chart designs that are already available, but yeah, this is just another design you can try. Let's rename this sheets, and we can move on to the next one, units sold by category. Let's now create the next sheet. I'm going to start with, of course, a pivot table. Table 2. We are going to look at the profit by product. So I'm going to grab the product name. Where is it? Product name. Add it to rows, and we are going to grab profits and add it to values. I'm going to right click here, and then I'm going to sort from largest to smallest, and I'm going to change the format of this. Go back to the home tab. I'm going to change it to currency. Specifically, I want to use dollars. Next, I'm going to insert my chart. We're still going to use the classic column chart. We still have one value. Don't worry, we're going to move on to the next one. I just want to, do a lot of things. We're going to format these numbers. I'm going to right click, hide all fill buttons on chart. I'm going to select this heading or the title. I'm going to make it profit by product. I'm going to select the entire chart area. Let's go from top to bottom. let's go over to the format chart area. Under fill, let me get rid of that legend. All right, I just selected legend and press delete, which we should also get rid of this one. All right, now we can start formatting our chart area. I'm going to select solid fill and I'm going to come over to fill color, select more colors, and this is what it's using now, right now. So by default, that's what it's going to use. So you're not going to need to change it. If it's not the same, this is pretty much very close to complete black. So I think there's no need to make any changes. So I just wanted to show you what color it's using. I'm going to close that. I wonder if it's one of the, so it's not one of these options here. So I would have showed you that if we select this, it's going to show that it's using one of those colors, but it's not. So I just wanted to show you what color it's using, although there isn't much of a difference between them. Now I'm going to select this axis and I want to add a line. So select solid line and we are going to change the color to white. This axis also, we want the color to be completely white. I'm going to select the entire chart area, come over to the home tab. You can change it here, but like I said, I prefer working on this tab. I'm going to make the color of the text white. Now let's format this axis. Come over to axis options here, and this number option, we're going to expand it. I want, first of all, you can either remove the decimal places from, let's say you're in the home tab, you select this section, and under accounting you can remove the decimal places, or you could use the axis options to remove the to change the number of decimal places and format your number. We'll work with other options here, but for now let's just move forward. I want to change how it displays this number. I want it to show 50k, 100k, 200k, because I feel like it's too long. I'm going to use this code. I'm going to use the $, and then this 0, and I'm going to add, and now it's going to format it this way, where we have 0k, 50k, and the numbers are much shorter. So if you want it to have it, and it also works for millions and billion and other kind of thing. The code just changes. I'm going to select the bars, and I want to change the gap to 80%. Once again, like I said, I like using 80%. If you want to increase or decrease it, you can. Next up, I want to change the fill, because we're going for a dark theme, and you know, making it have this glue effects will be really interesting. Let me change. I want this to have a rounded. I want it to have rounded corners. Let me see. Then I'll change the color. I'll change the color to what the background is, so you won't be able to notice that there is actually a border, because we need the border for it to have curved edges, rounded edges. So I'm going to use 06050B. That's the same color that it's using for the chart area. All right, let's come back to select the columns, and I'm going to go back to fill, and we want to use fill, not border. Select fill. Let's select more colors, and this is the color. I want to use this really neon pink color, FC5 CFE, and there we go. So if you are a fan of neon colors over dark backgrounds, this is for you. We can also add a glue to this, and I'm just going to select anyone. So the intensity will change. I could select maybe this, something like this. That's way too much. I feel like, yeah, I just select the second option, and that looks fine. I could change it, but you know what, that looks fine. Anyway, you can change it to maybe like a neon green, this mint color. So one of my favorites anytime I'm designing things, although it's not the most common. I like dark backgrounds with neon colors, so I just wanted to show you how you can create something like that and you have the bars glowing. So we had you can save your designs as you go so you can reuse it in the future. Let's just rename this and we can move on to the next one. So this is profits by products. All right, we're done with this one. Let's create a new sheet and we are going to insert a pivot table and we're going to reference table 2. You can go ahead and reference whatever table you are using in whatever the name of your own table is in your own file. So I'm going to grab category, add that to rows. We're going to grab region, put that in columns, and then the value is going to be revenue, and that's going to be revenue is going to be in values, just like this. Next, I'm going to, we can remove let's remove this grand total, and I can sort, let me sort from, let's do largest to smallest, and then I'm going to change the format of all of this to currency, and then I'm going to go over to insert. We're going to get recommended charts, and this time we're going to use a stacked column chart, and I'm going to click on OK, and now we have this version. So this is similar to what we had let's say here, but this time instead of them being separate, it's how will I put it, let's see how this one, so we have category, region, and revenue. It's exactly the same values, it's just that the type of chart you choose. This one we used the normal clustered column charts, but if we had selected this one, this is now this chart, so they are basically the same thing, but what you are looking at, not the same thing in the sense of what they are demonstrating. What a stacked column chart does, let me bring it down, it's not looking at discrete values, meaning that it's not looking at each individual value. Say we come to this one, it's looking at the sales for Soundmax, then it's looking at the sales for Workdex Pro, and it's looking at the total sales for Keypro. However, what a stacked column chart is doing is taking the total. So if you look over here, we know that this total should be like 1.8 some, okay, 1.8 something million. And if you look at the total here in electronics, it's 1.83 million. And if I hover over here, it's saying West, and it's showing how West contributes to the total. So a stacked column chart is showing the total, and then it shows how each category that you are specifying is contributing to that total. So also here, it's around 1.6, so a little over 1.6 million, same here. And here it's about almost 1.6, so it's 1.569. So a stacked column chart takes the total of the entire thing, the grand total, and then these colors you're seeing, it's just dividing it into how each section or each category or each item is contributing to that total. So just take note of that when you want to create your charts, depending on what you want to look at. Now, as we did before, I'm just going to hide these field buttons on our chart. Let's add a title to our charts, and then what we're going to do is also look at the defaults, say the ones that is provided by Excel, and then we can now format it and just do a little bit, just change the colors of the sections and things like that. I'm going to make this revenue by category and region. I'm going to also change the name of our sheets, which is revenue by category and region. I'm going to, you can either select here and you can see the ones that are provided, or you could go over to design and I can hover, and then you can just see, maybe you find you like any of these designs that is here, and you can just select one of them like that. But we are going to just format it in our own way. Okay, I said earlier that I'll show you what it means when you change the color. It's just, you can see that now it's choosing from a different range of colors, and every time you hover over this one, you can select any one of these colors that are here. So if I pick this one, it's more, these ones are more, will I say, they follow a more gradient sort of feel, like that. So if you want to pick any of these colors, say you wanted to use this one or this one, you can use that, but we are going to use our own colors. I'm going to, let me just increase this a little bit. Let's change the color of this. I could, let me right click, format axis, so that we can reduce the number of decimal places. And what I'm going to do is scroll down to number, and we're going to reduce the number of decimal places to 0. Let's change this color. So I'm going to select this section, which is west, go over to fill, and I'm going to change the fill color, select more colors, and I'm going to change this to 1F4E79. Next up is going to be this one. Come over to fill, more colors, and this is going to be 2CA58D. Next up is going to be this one. I'm going to change the color to F28E 2B. And then finally this one, I'm going to select more colors, and this is just going to be B0, B0, B0. All right, maybe I can change the gap width to 100. Since I've made the charts a little bit larger than it would be, I'll just make it 100. Anyway, that is what a typical stacked column chart is. Just like we did with the normal clustered column chart, we are just going to create more versions of this, and then we'll edit them differently and look into different values. Let's create a new worksheet, and I'm going to insert a pivot table, and I'll reference my table, which is table 2. Let's grab category again. I'm going to grab region. Where is it? Region. Add that to columns, and this time we're going to add profits. So this looks like our typical pivot table. I'm going to add one more value. This time we are going to add subcategory under this row. So we have in rows here, we have category. I'm going to grab subcategory and bring it underneath category, and your charts, your pivot table should look like this. I'm just going to select this. Let me change the values as usual to currency, and then I'm going to go to insert recommended charts. Now this, we didn't create something like this when we were creating the clustered column chart, but this is what it would look like if we did that with the clustered column chart. But I'm just going to do that with this one, and you should have something that looks like this. Now this doesn't look like a typical chart. So we have these 4 sections here represents the region. This is the sales. Profit for headphones and keyboards, that's the accessories, is the category, and these are the subcategories, and then we can see the profits by region. So you are essentially looking at 4 different things. So you're looking for the products by category, subcategory, and then by region as well. So I don't know when it will be necessary to use this, but if it's something that you want to use, you know, this is however you plot your items. Excel will sort of like position it and create a chart out of it. So you just kind of figure out what you need when you need it. I'm just going to remove the fill buttons on charts. There's no need, we're not going to do any formatting on this one. I just want to add a chart title, rename it, and then we can move on to the next one. So this is product by category, subcategory, and region. So what I can just do to make the sheet name shorter is just to make it, let me say, profit by, I won't be able to write everything, so I'll just write category and region. All right, so that is it for this one. You can reduce the decimal places either by reducing decimal places here or by formatting this axis under the numbers tab. Anyway, that is it for this one. Let's create another one and see a different maybe design or style of plotting this. Let's create a new sheet, and of course we're going to insert a pivot table, and that is going to be, I'm going to reference table 2. So we're going to use category once again, and yes, we're going to be repeating a lot of values. Once again, we're just demonstrating the chart. It's not really the data analysis side of things. I'm going to, let me see, units sold, add that to values, and we are going to also add, let's use customer segment this time in columns, and this is what we are going to have. I'm going to remove grand total. Select any section in this. We can actually, let's say, come over to grand total. Let's sort from largest to smallest and go over to insert charts, and we are going to use a stacked column chart, and I'm just going to insert it. I'm just going to right click, hide all field buttons on chart, and we are going to add a chart title, and this is going to be units sold by category. And now let's remove the axis on this side, and let's also remove these grid lines. I'm going to delete that. Next up, let's add data labels. So I'm going to click on data labels, and this time it's showing within the charts themselves. So you can change the position, whether I want it on the inside and inside B's or data callout, something like this. But we're just going to leave it like that. What I am going to do is select this, come over to home, make the text white, same for this one, white, and same for this one. We're not really going to do much. Any formatting you do on audio, so if you want to, let me see, recreate something like this with a stacked column chart, all you need to do is like find 4 different colors that have this neon color, and you can pretty much apply the same sort of formatting you have in this entire type of columns, with the exception of the 3D charts. It's more limited in what you can do with them, but in general, whatever you can apply to the stacked to the clustered column charts, you can apply to the stacked column charts. Anyway, that's it for this ones. Let's now move on to the next type of charts. Well, let me rename this units sold by category. All right. Oh, okay. Let me see units. I'm just going to use units by category. All right, that's fine now. Let's now move on to the next one, which is going to be the 100%. I believe it's the 100% stacked column. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Let's create a new worksheet, and I'm going to insert a pivot table as I've done. Let's use category, and we're going to use region in the columns, category in rows, region in columns, and we're going to use revenue in values. We can change the format of this, how will I say it? We can change the formats of these, but for what we want to create now, there's no need. What I'm going to do is go to insert. We're going to use recommended charts, and we are going to create a 100% stacked column, and I'm going to click on OK. Now this is similar to the stacked column chart, but how it works is you see here it's not showing the numbers. So even if we change this to currency, it's not showing numbers. What it's showing is percentages. So earlier I was talking about a stacked column chart. You're looking at the total and seeing how each item contributes to the total. Here we're seeing proportion, where we are looking at percentage. How much does these items contribute to this in terms of the whole? Similar to what you have with a pie chart or a donut chart. That's why when you're working on data analysis projects, sometimes they will say, don't use donut charts, don't use pie charts. Use a 100% stacked column chart in place of a donut or pie chart. Well, they essentially do the same thing. So again, it's just the total. You're looking at the total and you can see a spread of where, like in this one, let me use this one, it's much more clear, where we can see south, even though we don't know the exact number. So if you hover, you'll be able to see the exact numbers, but more you can see the percentage where south is contributing most. Then we have, I think, west is next, midwest next, and then the northwest contributes the least. So that is a 100% stacked column chart. Let's just format it. I'm going to hide all field buttons and I'm going to add a chart title, and I'm going to change this. This is going to be revenue distribution. I'm just going to delete these grid lines also. Anyway, that's it for this one. I want to rename my worksheets, and I'm going to now move on to the next one. So as usual, create a new worksheet, and I'm going to insert a new pivot table and reference table 2. I'm going to grab, let's look at more items this time. So we have region. Next we have city under region. Then we're going to grab customer segments. Let me find that. Add customer segments to columns, and we are going to grab revenue and add that to values. I'm going to select all of this. I'm doing that by select, hold Control and Shift, click on left, down, go to home, and I'm going to change this to $. Well, there was no need anyway, but I'm just going to show you that even if you change the format of your numbers to digits, it's not going to change how it plots your results. And I'm going to click on OK. And now we have another set of stacked column charts. This will not really be a good idea to typically plot your charts, but I just want to show you we did something similar with the stacked column chart. You can do this with the cluster column charts as well. So I just wanted to show you another way you can do this. So we have Midwest, we have the region. So these states, please don't worry about if they actually fall within those regions. This is all for educational purposes. Don't worry about that too much. So we have Midwest comprising of these 3 states, Northwest, these 3 states, South, and then West. So it's dividing it into region. Before we are now looking at the different customer segments, and then we are also looking at the percentages. So you are looking at 4 different values all at once. When creating your charts or things like that, or doing your data analysis, what you want to go for is what is easiest to interpret your data. How clear is your data? How does it interpret your data, so you don't make it too confusing and things like that. But anyway, that's it. You can leave all these field buttons if you want, but common practice, which I typically do, is to remove all of it. So this is revenue by segments, customer segments. Segment and city, or I could add region. I'll just put city, and the title is already quite long as it is. You can also, of course, let me right click format data series so I can get this tab. I can also reduce the gap width. Let me make it 100, so your bars are going to be a bit thicker. Well, anyway, that is it for this one. I'm going to rename my sheet. I'm going to make this customer segment distribution. All right, that's it. Let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to create a new sheet and then insert pivot table, table 2 is what we are going to reference. I'm going to grab sales rep. Where is it? Sales rep, add sales rep to rows, and we are going to use revenue and add that to values. I'm going to just remove the grand total. I'm going to select all of this and change this to currency, specifically dollar. And what I'm going to do is insert recommended charts. We're going to create this one, which is the 3D clustered column chart. I'm going to select that, click on OK, and we have our 3D chart. This is just basically a clustered column chart in a 3D format. So I'm not going to talk much about it. Let's just take a moment. I could just, hide off your field buttons for charts. I'm going to change this to sales rep revenue. Let me also change the name of our worksheet, sales rep revenue, and I can just select this, maybe right click format axis, so I can reduce the number of decimal places, or I could just reduce it, make this 0. All right, let's take a moment to look at the default options. So let me come over to design, and I'm just going to hover over it so you can see it. So you have these options. So this one, the opacity, you can kind of see the back of it, and you have this and this and this. You have different versions of this. Let me see this one. You have this dark one. This one actually looks good to me. Maybe just pick a different color for the actual bars. This one also looks good, and this one is not that different from the default. It's just some other differences. But anyway, as I was saying, let's look at, won't really change much. Maybe as we go on, we can look at some things, but in general, there are not much you can change. For example, in the charts area, you see that the fill option, we have line, and maybe you can change, you really can't change much in, let me see, this is the grid lines for this, and so, okay, in the fill. But if you select these bars are not that difficult, and how will I say it, easy to change. So over design, in formats, we can go to shape effects, and you see that some options are not here. That's what I was saying, that unlike the clustered column charts that you can easily edit, this one, there are some things that you cannot do, but the different charts have different things you can change. You can change the style, so you can actually make it like this or like this, and as I'm hovering over it, you can see how you can change the design to whatever. Rotation doesn't do anything. You can select anyone and nothing is going to change. So even if you try to click on some things, it's not going to work. So as you work with this, you'll be able to figure out what you can change, what you can do, things like that. But the 3D chart is basically the 3D version of a clustered column chart, so no need to do much. Let's move on to another one so I can kind of demonstrate something else. I'm going to create a new worksheet, and I'm going to create a pivot table. This is going to be table 2, and I'm going to grab, let's see, region. That's I think region is on top. Yeah, region. And then I'm going to grab payment method. Where is it? Put it under region, and we are going to grab, that's region, and payment method is going to be in rows, and we are going to grab values, and we are going to have costs. So we're going to do the total cost, and I'm going to just select all of this and make it currency like that. I'm going to go to insert charts, and I'm going to use a 3D clustered column chart. And just like we did earlier with the one previously, where we used it on the stacked column chart and the 100% stacked column chart, you can see it. However, this time you are not seeing that line, unlike the other one where it able to easily differentiate, where we could tell between that line that we're looking at different discrete items. This one doesn't have those lines, so it's kind of like picking which one looks like one giant mess. So I'll just say maybe pick and choose when you use this, you know, just leave it to simple charts, and once you start overloading it, may get harder to interpret. But anyway, that's it. Let me also demonstrate something you can do in this axis. So you see in this axis we have how will I put this, we have this 350 and nothing is above. Let me see, what does this one, 351. Okay, it's actually above. I wanted to show you how you could reduce the axis, where, let me just show you. I'm going to right click and I'm going to format axis, so we'll have this option. Now you see here the minimum is 0.0, leave it, and it's on auto. I can reduce this to, let's make this 350,000, 350, 1, 2, 3. And then what you have is it will remove that maximum, and now the charts, this applies to all other chart types. I think you can use it for like line charts and other things like that. So you can modify where the maximum is. So this one is how will I put it, and I'll change it to 350, although it automatically does that, and I tend to leave it as it is, except I feel like there's too much space on top. I typically leave it like that. You could also I'm going to select the data below. I'm going to select everything, reduce the number of decimal places, and it's also going to change here. Let me just change the title payment method and region. And I'm also going to change the name of the sheet to profit by payment method. Okay, so we are done with this one. Let's move on to the next one. Let's create a new worksheet, and I'm going to change this to, this is going to be revenue by state and category. Select any cell, insert pivot table, and we're going to reference to. Okay, and insert that. Let's grab states, add that to rows, and we are going to grab category. Where is it? Category in columns, and we are going to have revenue in values. So you should have this. I'm going to remove one of the grand totals, at least. Select all of the values and go over to the home tab. Change this to this one, makes it easier, to currency in dollars. Select anywhere in this pivot table, insert, and I'm going to go to recommended charts, and we are going to use the same 3D clustered column chart, and I'm going to click on OK, and this should look familiar. This is what we have for a 3D clustered column chart with multiple categories. So we have category here, 3 categories under each state. So we're not really going to do any real formatting on this. We're just going to change the title. Once again, just play around with this chart and see what's going on. I just want to demonstrate how all of these work. So I'm going to right click, hide a few buttons on charts, and then I'm going to add a chart title and change this to revenue by states and category. And that is it for this one. Very quick. You can try it with other ones if you want, other values and other categories and things like that. Well, yeah, that's it for this one. Let's create yet another worksheet. We should be, I'm going to select any cell, insert pivot table. I'm going to reference my table, table 2. This time, let's use, we're going to create a stacked column. So we're going to grab states, state in rows, we're going to grab quarter. Let me see, quarter in columns, and we are going to grab profit. Profit is going to go to values. I'm just going to leave the grand total this time. I'm going to select all of this, go over to home, and I'm going to change this to US dollar. And I'm going to insert recommended charts, and we are going to use a 3D stacked column chart. So that's the next chart type. So once again, this is a stacked column chart. Same thing that it does. All it does is take the total and then shows how each level, each category you're looking at contributes to the total. So we can see Q4 is this blue color, Q3 is the green, Q2 is orange, and Q1 is this other dark blue color compared to the other one. So look, you can look at each, and we're also looking at it by state. So we can see the total here. In this one in California, Q2 has the lowest contribution, and I think this one here has the highest. If you can always hover over the item and you're going to get this preview where you can see the values. Same, we can look at this one. Q4 has the lowest, and then so on and so forth. But anyway, we have this one, Q3 is very low. So that is how you can use a stacked column, a 3D stacked column chart. It's still the same thing with a stacked column chart, just a 3D version. I'm going to add a chart title, and then we are going to look at the default versions that we can use. Let me say default designs you can look at. And okay, let's now come over here. Let me select this, and we can look at, so we have this one, we have this is a dark version. We have this one next. I actually like this, and then we have this one. I think it's only 8 styles here. You see, I wonder if we're going to get more options here. Okay, no, so it's now you can see that the number of designs, when we're looking at the other 2D version, I'll just call it the 2D version, there were more design options. And like I said, in 3D charts, there's less options to see. If I try to select this line, I won't be able to remove it, because even if you remove it, it's going to take away from the 3D effect of it. So depending on what kind of chart you're working on, how you can format it to change. So once again, it just comes down to experience. The more you work with these charts, the more you can figure out what you can do with them, both in terms of data analysis as well as formatting to create a specific design. All right, that's it for this one. Let's create another one. But first, of course, I'm going to rename this, and it's going to be profit by state and quarter. Okay, so let's create another worksheet. I'm going to select any cell, and I'm going to go to insert pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 2. I'm going to grab months, add that to rows, and then I'm going to grab sales channel. Where is it? Sales channel. Yep. Add that to columns, and we are going to use revenue for values, and we are going to have this. There's no need to change the currency because we want to use a 100% stacked column chart, a 3D 100% stacked column chart. So I'm going to go to insert recommended charts, and I'm going to select this one, which is the 3D 100% stacked column chart. Click on that and OK, and there you go. Once again, we have this same distribution of a stacked column chart, just 3D of that version. I'm not going to change any details. I will just look at the defaults. I won't change it, but we'll look at the default designs and we'll move on. So I don't think there's any need for me to explain. We are essentially looking the percentage distribution of the entire thing when we want to see how each one contributes to the total. I'm going to right click, hide all field buttons on chart, and I'm going to create a chart title, and I'm going to rename this revenue by month and sales channel. I'm going to come over to, let's go to the design tab. I wonder, okay, this one has only 8, I believe. So we have this, did it change? Okay, it's this, then we have this one is 2. Wait, so maybe if you use something like this, you have to, I don't know, maybe do something like this. Okay, that actually looks, so you just have to extend it. Well, I'm going to undo. We can just hover this one actually, because I tend to like really dark, I like dark designs in general, so this one looks good. Maybe I'll just change how the title looks. I don't like the bold of it, the bold and title. This one almost close to the default. This one too, I don't like how the title is, but you know, you can still change it. But anyway, that is the 3D 100% stacked column chart. You can try it with other values, but again, there's no need. So I'm just going to change the name of this sheet to revenue by, let me make it month. I'll just use month. It may not reflect completely what we're looking at, but yeah. Anyway, that's it for this one. Let's move on to another one. Let's create a new sheet and let's insert a pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 2. Next, I'm going to grab states, add states to rows, and I'm going to grab category, add that to columns, and we are going to grab profits and add profits to values. I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to go over to home, and here under general, I'm going to make this currency specifically dollars. Now select anywhere in your pivot table, go to insert, recommended charts, and we are going to use this final one, 3D column. I'm going to select that, click on OK, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to hide all 2 buttons on charts, and I'm going to add our chart title so that we can look at some designs and also modify it. Why not? We haven't modified any of our charts. This is sales by states and category. I'm just going to extend this. You know what? I'm going to select this legend, and I'm just going to delete it. You may want to keep it, you know, but just to make it easier for us to see our charts, I'm just going to delete it. So this is what we have. Let's make some changes to it. So you can select these bars and you know, let me right click, format data series, and you can have this option for fill, so the basics, fill, and all of that. I don't know. Okay, there's options for borders, so you have solid line, and you can have those borders like that. So you can just go around you know, whatever settings are available. So there's no option for glue. So like I said, some settings are not available for some certain charts, so glue is not available. Shadows there is. Maybe let's see if we'll have any shadows. There is, so you can see that we have shadows there, so shadows will work on this particular chart. Let's look at some of the defaults. We have this, so you have this one facing this direction, you have this one, this, you know, that's it. How many do we have in total? Let me go to the design tab and see what it is. Okay, this one actually has more options compared to the 3D clustered column chart. Let's go to change colors, and just like we did, you can pick any colors that work for you. This one I would prefer something that has more contrast. So I'm going to select this data, and I'm going to come over here. So this series options, we can change this. I'm going to make this, let's see what happens if I make it 350. So instead you just make it less than the gap width, you know, there's more gap width, so they actually shrink. Then that's the gap depth, sorry. So the gap width, we're going to leave it like that, and there's these options to change column shape. So we have full pyramid, and the color, the size, the shape of that is going to change. Let's select another one. I'm going to select partial pyramid. So this one, you see that some of them have complete, I would like say close to complete, where the top is, let me select this, and I'm going to change this. So this one is complete because it's the highest, but the lower the series is, the how will I say, the less of it you have, if that makes sense. So we have the cylinder, and then we have full cone, and then we have partial cone, which it has exactly the same effect, where you have, this one is complete, and depending on, you know, what you have there, it's not going to, you're going to have not the entire thing. I want to change it to, I want to use this full pyramid, and I want to use this full pyramid. Let's change the colors of this. So let's go back to the first one, select it, let's go to fill. I'm going to select this, and then we're going to go to more colors. I'm going to change the color to F3 ABC9, and we have this light pink color. Let's do the same for this one, more colors. I'm going to change this to DB8 DB8 ED7, and then finally this one at the back, I'm going to select more colors, and I'm going to change it to this. I'll just type it out, A88FDA, and we have this one finally. So I actually like these colors, you know, it has a unique palette. So anyway, that is the 3D column chart, 3D chart, sorry. I'm going to rename this. We're just going to do one more, and then we're going to be done with this particular video. This is going to be sales by state and category. Okay, let's move to our final chart. I'm going to create a new sheet, and I'm going to insert a pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 2. Let's grab, this is going to be more for demonstration, just to show you, but I won't advise you to do it in, you know, real life project. I'm going to grab category, bring that to rows. I'm going to grab payment method, bring that to rows again. We're going to grab region, there we go, add that to columns, and we are going to grab profits, and I'm going to bring it to values. I'm going to select all of this and change it to currency, which is United States dollars. Now go over to insert recommended charts. We are going to use the 3D column, and I'm going to click on OK. The reason why I did this, you can see once again, similar to what we did before, we have 4 different payment methods, but it's not separating it, so it won't work for this chart because you can't differentiate between, or which one belongs to the accessories at a glance. So one of the good thing about charts is that you should be able to at a glance tell what you're looking at, but if you are trying to decipher it, you know, it becomes loses its purpose sort of. I'm going to right click, hide all fill buttons on chart, and I'm also going to just add a chart title. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to make this profits by region, category, and payment method. Let me see, what do I do next? Let's just change the colors of the shape and colors of this data series. So I'm just going to right click, and I'm going to format data series. I want it to be cylinder. I'm going to just change all of them right now, so make all of them cylinders, and I'll go back to the last one again. Let me change the fill. These colors just make it easier for me to see them, so I'll start with this. Then next is going to be this color. We have this, and for this one I'm going to go to more colors and I'm going to use BF B5 E4. Alright, once again, this is not really a chart you would use when you're actually carrying out analysis, but you know, who knows, maybe you've seen something similar or you want to know how to create things like this. Another way you can format charts, let's say you go over to design. There are these chart elements you see. Like I said, a lot of time when you're working with Microsoft software and things like that, there are multiple ways to do the same thing. So over here you have the axis options, so we can see there's depth here. You can change primary vertical, primary horizontal. You can change different things, as you know, similar to how you can do. Remember, we created data tables in the other one. I'm not going to leave it here. We're going to make none or no legend keys, things like that. So while you can select certain items here, then modify them further by saying more options, you can also come here and modify your charts and things like that. Then you have quick layouts where you can, it's similar to what we just have, but you know, move things around and design it. But anyway, the key to this working with things like this is with time you're just going to get better at it. Just play around with it. The data set is there. You can use it to create different versions or more versions, and if you want, you can share images of your charts in the community tab. Anyway, that is it for our first video in this series. For the next series, we're going to focus on the next chart type, which is going to be the line charts. Yeah, the line charts. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something new. If you liked it, please like the video, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.